Welcome to class. I'm Trevor and I post D&D videos every week, generally on Wednesdays. I wanted to release this video just in time for spooky season. This is going to be some homebrew, specifically a homebrew creature that will fit for a Halloween one-shot. As a matter of fact, if this video gets, let's be ambitious, 1,000 views, I'll release a one-shot centered around the character that I'm going to talk about. That character is actually inspired by Magic the Gathering, and her name is Lynde, the Cheerful Tormentor. Before I get into the stat block, I want to do a quick rundown of who Lynde is and where this card comes from. The current Magic the Gathering set is called Innistrad Midnight Hunt. Innistrad is a kind of gothic horror plane that focuses on werewolves, zombies, and vampires. I knew I wanted to do a video inspired, like fit for spooky season, that took place or took inspiration from Innistrad. But I knew that I didn't really want to do zombies and vampires and werewolves. I feel like some of that stuff is a little overdone. I'm trying to think of how I would do lycanthropy rules, but I haven't hit the nail on the head with that. And when I saw Lynde in the Commander product, I knew that like an evil witch that casts curses seemed fit for D&D. And it seemed like a character or a big bad that you could use in a one-shot or like a single adventure. Or, I mean, heck, you could slot it into a campaign too, but it just seemed perfect for spooky season. Before I get into the stat block, I do want to address the art for Lynde, because it's an in-joke for Magic. She's holding a little voodoo doll, and that voodoo doll is a character called the Unluckiest, or something along those lines, and he appeared on Curse cards in earlier Magic product. He's just like a character who apparently wronged Lynde at some point in the like history or lore of Magic. And the fact that she has this voodoo doll of him and he is the target of her curses just seemed really flavorful, and I really liked that. It's interesting how evocative the character can be just based on art and like previously understood expectations. So because of all of those things, I wanted to make Lynde into a 5e bad guy, and I did that. So let's talk about our stat block. I based Lynde around a warlock. It just seemed the most fitting, but I gave her some specific things that she could do, and I tried to tie it back to those curse cards that the Unluckiest appeared on in the previous Magic sets. She revolves around curses. She has some other attacks as well, so I'll start with those. She does have Eldritch Blast, and she also has a needle-based attack, like a poisoned needle, that can be used at melee or thrown for range. I wanted to give her something that wasn't exclusively curses. I felt like that would be too limiting, and I thought these two worked pretty well. Now, before I delve into the curses, she has an effect that is kind of an umbrella for all of the curses themselves, and that is called Witch's Curses. So all of the curses have a DC 15 Wisdom save. They can be removed individually by the Remove Curse spell, and she can have 3 of them active at a time. Now, that, based on like current curse rules in 5th edition, that might be strong, but I created specific curses for her. So her curse is not like the Bestow Curse spell in 5e. I gave her curses based on Magic cards that are curses, and she can have any 3 of those active at a time. I know this like fundamentally breaks the rules of concentration and things like that. I personally don't care, and I think that this could be a fun monster to run, and it matches the flavor of the card, and those are the big 2 things that I was trying to do when I was creating this stat block. Let's look at the first curse, Cursive Disturbance. This curse makes the creature afflicted by it, whenever they attack a non-zombie creature, they summon a zombie, and the zombie is aggressive toward them. This is a lot. This could easily get out of control, and I completely understand that. I am hoping, like, with great homebrew comes great responsibility, right? I'm hoping that as a DM, you know where to kind of gate this effect. You might want to limit the number of zombies that are summoned. You might want to treat them like minions rather than full zombie stat blocks. But I want that encroaching fear of, oh, I'm attacking a creature and then a corpse shambles up and comes to life and starts like attacking me. I want that to come across. And I think that I did so with the way that this curse is created. If it doesn't work for your game, tweak it, modify it, run with it. But this seemed like a good starting point, and it matched the flavor of the card that I was basing it off of. You're going to see that like that was my biggest thing, was trying to find that balance between matching the card, like the card art, the flavor, the effect of the card, and making sure it worked, at least relatively speaking, within the rules of 5e. Let's talk about the second possible curse that Lynde could cast. That is the Curse of Opulence. Now, not all of the curses are combat-based curses. As a matter of fact, Disturbance is the most combat-based curse. Curse of Opulence means that the character who's afflicted by it sheds coin. And other characters, probably not the party, although you could run it that way, other characters are distracted and might become enamored by this coin. That's that puts a target on this player, especially because the coin that comes off of this character isn't real. After a day, the coin turns to ash. This prevents this from breaking the economy of the game, and it turns this into an actual curse rather than a boon in disguise, right? Like, players could obviously take advantage otherwise. Now, players still might try to take advantage of this, but I think that there is enough room for DM discretion and enough pressure that this could put on a party where I think that it would be fun. Like, I think it would be fun to afflict one of my players with a curse like this, just to see how they operate and what they choose to do with this kind of new, I don't know, it's not a set of skills, but like this affliction that they're dealing with. Finally, let's talk about Cursive Verbosity. If you look at the card art, the effect of this matches the card art. Cursive Verbosity means the afflicted can't stop talking. And they are therefore far less apt when it comes to a lot of social skills or a lot of charisma-based skills. And they're also definitely not stealthy. You could easily turn it into disadvantage on stealth, but I wanted that to feel a little bit more weighted. I know mechanically, like -5 and disadvantage, I think they're the same thing, but I didn't care. Like, I know my players are a lot more accustomed to disadvantage and not accustomed to an actual negative modifier on their rolls, so I wanted to try to throw something different at them with this. And I'm interested to see how this would work. Like, I'm hoping that I would have a player, or that if you run this, you would have a player that could kind of lean into this a little bit. And if they become afflicted with this curse, maybe they, or however they're choosing to roleplay, their character actually like talks more and gets kind of overwhelmed or flustered because of being affected by this curse. I just think that these are really flavorful. And again, one of them is more combat focused. One of them is a bit more social, or like strictly social, and then Opulence kind of rides that middle line where it may lead to some combat, but it doesn't necessarily have to. I tried to cover a lot of different ranges with these first 3 curses that I came up with for Lynde. Lynde gets 2 other things besides everything I've already mentioned, and that's an additional ability and a reaction. Let's talk about the ability first, and it's called Gift from the Accursed. Depending on how many stacks of curses she has on players, she gets bonuses. She gets a first bonus, which is 10 temporary HP if she has 1 curse active. If she has 2 curses active, she gets AC and damage bonuses. If she has 3 curses active, that's when things get very serious, because at 3 curses, Lynde can cast Dominate Person or Dominate Monster on a cursed target. This is terrifying. This is very, very strong. But to me, that domination effect that's kind of an ultimate curse. And I wanted that kind of control to come across with this character, and I'm hoping that it did so. It would take a while to like ramp up to this point, but Lynde to me seems like a character or an enemy that would play smart. She would be dropping these curses subtly. She wouldn't rush into combat, and then once all of her traps were set, then she would spring or feel comfortable like actually engaging with the party. She would not fight if it was not on her own terms, and I think this kind of sets up a stat block for a character like that. And finally, we have a reaction. When Lynde is attacked, she can move an existing curse. It already has to have a target. It already has to be on someone to the target who attacked her, and she can send out a bolt of Eldritch Blast. This might seem a bit arbitrary, but I wanted her to feel like she had some sense of combat prowess, and I also wanted the ability to move curses around from the card to work in 5th edition. And this seemed like a good way to do it, and it gave her something to do as a reaction that was a little bit more flavorful than just an attack of opportunity. So that's Lynde the Cheerful Tormentor. Hopefully this stat block works for your games, and if this video hits 1,000 views, then I will release a one-shot, like an adventure with her as the kind of central big bad. If you want more curses, there are plenty of inspiration from Magic cards, and if you have suggestions, drop them in the comments below, and I'll try to turn those into other abilities. I wanted that flexibility with Lynde. These are 3 examples of curses that she could have, but they don't have to be the only ones. So I'm going to be thinking about that kind of in the background, but if you want to add some or make some suggestions, please do so. I'd really appreciate it. But hopefully this kind of fits your spooky season vibes, and as I always say, probably more importantly than ever, be safe. Make smart life choices.